Hi guys, it's Rel Klein, and this originally was going to be a making a movie idea on the spot, but after last night's Supernatural's episode, the finale, we need to talk about some things. So because if I was going to do making a movie idea on the spot, I would spend like 30 minutes talking about the Supernatural series finale first. So might as well just make this like a Rel Reviews and me reviewing it, because why not? And we'll do making a movie idea tomorrow. So first off, I am so mad. Like, I can't even be sad about it because I'm just so mad. And I understand why Jensen didn't like the ending. I totally understand. And I'm just gonna get into the emotions, okay? So we're just gonna start from the beginning. Love seeing Dean with the dog. Love seeing the routine and a little bit of them. And then they go to like the pie place, which was a cute scene, but overall, what was the point of that? Like, there was no point. And then when like Sam put the pie in Dean's face, like, I swear someone was laughing behind them. I was like, is that Robert Singer? Who knows? And so then they had like a long, like, you know, in Supernatural, there's always like a long murder scene at the beginning. I was like, this is the finale. I do not want to see these random people. Anyway, so let me just cut to, you know, the fight scene. I was like, what? Also, what was the point of bringing back a vampire from season 1 that no one remembered and her dying like 2 seconds later? Like, what was the point? What was the point? Anyway, as soon as Dean with that nail, I was on the floor screaming because I was like, wow, they really just killed him that way. And, you know, I was screaming and my mom was like crying, and I was like, there's 30 minutes left. This is me when it was all happening. So this is why I didn't really listen to the whole speech that Dean and Sam had or whatever when Dean was dying, because the entire time I kept screaming, there's 30 minutes left, there's 30 minutes left, they're gonna bring him back. And I was like thinking like, oh, that's kind of like a very Supernatural thing for, like, you know, someone to die in the middle of the episode or something to happen in the middle of the episode, and then the rest of the episode is trying to bring that person back to life. Like, that seems like a Supernatural ending. So it's like, yeah, there's like half an episode left, they're gonna bring him back to life. And then Sam was just burning the body. I was like, why are you burning the body? And then he like left the bunker, and I was like, oh my god. And then I was like, they're gonna make it so that when Sam dies, they're just gonna end up in heaven together. And I saw it. So then I started realizing it, and it was so bad. Oh my god. There's just so many things wrong with it. And I'm just so mad. Because I'm gonna get into it. How could that be the ending? Like, after 15 years, you owe it better. Oh my god. Because everyone was thinking about different possibilities, right? And so a possibility was that like Dean would die before Sam. Like, it was a possibility, and then Sam living his life. Like, I understand that, and I understand that's probably what the writer's intentions were, because I mean that does make sense. But for that to make sense, Dean needs to die in a big way that's like world-shattering stuff. World-shattering, and that it was just so impossible that Sam could bring him back. And that Sam, like, maybe he even tries to bring him back, but there's no way. And that Dean does goes to heaven, but not having Cass in the episode. Imagine being Misha and finding out you're not in the finale. Oh my god. It overall doesn't make sense because this whole show is about saving each other and sacrificing each other's lives. And so to think that someone like Nail just killed him and then Sam wouldn't even try to bring him back to life, it just doesn't make sense. After everything was supernatural, it just doesn't make sense. And so then I saw something at the end like, oh, like I've been reading so much Tumblr and Twitter, and I was like, saw something that was like, oh, maybe at the end, you know, in the heaven, magic, heat of the moment plays. Like, at least if it had that, I would be like, okay, but this ending, oh my god, it was so, it sounds like I'm just ranting because I'm mad, but like, it literally, this ending made me ashamed to be a fan of the show. Like, now I don't like Supernatural anymore. Like, now I'm looking back at all my edits I've saved, you know, all my years that I've loved it. I mean, yesterday, the Thank You Supernatural episode video I made, I was crying so much because the show means so much to me. And then you give me like the worst episode ever. And it doesn't feel like a Supernatural episode either because there's always, even if it starts out slow or it just starts out with a certain hunt, something happens in the middle, which was Jean dying, which I understood. But then the rest of the episode is fast-paced and amazing and trying to bring him back to life, which would have been so great. Imagine, you know, even if you wanted to keep the first half of the episode, the second half, change that. I mean, fanfic writers, go ahead, change that. Where, you know, Sam calls out for Jack and Jack gets Cass, and then they all help bring Dean back to life. Like, it just, that's closer to the ending I needed, but I feel like even that, like, it just needed more. Okay, so the Vampire Diaries ending, that was a hard ending, but it was good. And at first I was like a little bit mad about it because, you know, Stefan dies, spoiler, but like overall it was a good episode and it was a good ending. And there was a lot of stakes happening, and the times where you're like, oh my god, I can't believe that happened, and they brought Nina back, oh my god. This ending, it just also doesn't make sense. It was just not a good ending. Oh my god. So bad. So bad. And it just doesn't make sense to the show. And don't tell me it was COVID, because they brought back this random vampire from season 1. So they definitely could have brought back Misha. And Eileen was also not in the episode. I mean, if they were worried about COVID, they could have at least mentioned her, kind of like how they mentioned Cass, but actually wanted to see Cass. Ugh. Anyway, I also saw something that, like, this was the original ending. If they, like, you know, didn't go hunting in season 1, episode 1, like, Sam would have gone on to live a normal life, and Dean would have probably died young from a hunt. But there's been 15 seasons, and they built a family. Yes, it first started with the 2 brothers, but that's not how the ending, like, that's not the rest of the season. So you can't base a finale off that. And we thought that with the ending of 1519, the penultimate episode, that was like the Winchesters ending. Like, that made sense to have that ending, and then this one more family, because that one ended with the 2 of them. I am just so pissed off. I feel cheated on. I feel betrayed. I don't know how I feel about Supernatural anymore. Now I just can't with the show anymore. Like, I just literally, it makes me hate the show. Like, we were destined to break up, you know, the relationship to end, but we wanted to end it on good terms, and instead they cheated on me and it ended on bad terms. And it just is something that was like, as I said in my video, like, Supernatural is the reason I'm alive, but then it kind of just like makes me think, like, what's the point if it just, you know, if it just gives me such a badly written ending? Like, what was the point of my life? I don't know. And if they wanted to leave it like unfinished for potential of future movies, like, there's such a better way to go about it. And I get it, their intentions would have it had to have it like Dean dying young and Sam dying old. Like, I get it, but there's a better way to write it and a better way to include Cass. And it just, I'm just so, like, I just hate Supernatural now. Like, it's hard to describe unless you are a fan and then watch the finale. And I'm sure other people who aren't even fans of Supernatural, like, and I'm afraid, like, because now when I became a mom, I always wanted to show my kids Supernatural, but now I'm like ashamed to show them Supernatural because I was like, it's gonna have a really bad ending. Like at least the Vampire Diaries ending, like, people thought it was bad because they were mad that Stefan died, obviously, but it actually tied up the show. This did not tie up the show. It left off everything. It just didn't make sense, and I keep saying that, but it just didn't. And that's why I can't be sad that that show ended, because I'm like in denial. Like, that can't be the ending. Like, this can't be true. Like, am I in a dream? And I'm just enraged, and I just am so hurt by it. And like, no wonder Tessa didn't like it. Oh my god, imagine being him, the one who portrayed this character, and that's the way his character goes. And this is also my favorite fictional character of all time. And he just wasn't himself. They wrote him as not himself, you know? Just being so okay dying that way. Like, if you were gonna die by monsters, it better be like something like a god, you know? It was like, all the memes are like, oh, he was able to take down God, but a nail took him out. Like, it just, it was, I literally was in pain watching that too, that episode too. And my mom feels the same way about me. Like, she just feels so like dull now and so unsatisfied. My dad even too, and he's only been watching for a couple of seasons. But it's like, what? And at the end, you know, they're expecting us to be crying, but I'm just like, but I read a lot of people were like laughing, especially with Sam's like wig. But I was just like kind of just sitting there like in disbelief, because I generally like, I thought he was gonna come back. Like, I literally kept saying that to my mom and was screaming because that's Supernatural. But this didn't feel like Supernatural, and I'm so mad, and I had to get it out in the video, and there's probably more stuff about it that I want to say that I can't think of right now, where I'm just like, what was a good thing about the episode? I don't know. The dog. That's the only good thing about that episode. People are like, oh, but they got their happy ending. Like, not really. Dean died young and they're just in heaven. And in heaven all you do supposedly is drive. Like, how dare they? Like, I'm in writing for series TV right now for one of my classes, and rewrite spec scripts for shows. Obviously not one of them is Supernatural. I'm actually writing one for Jane the Virgin. And we like go over and critique it, and I swear that like if someone wrote this, like if this was presented in my class and like everyone had watched Supernatural and knew about it, my professor would roast the shit out of us. She'd be like, all of us would be like, this makes sense. What is happening in this scene? Like, this doesn't make sense. The overall story, like, we would completely destroy this. So it kind of shows the bar is really low, and that maybe I can make it in this industry, because that was just bad. And it's so sad too, because the Supernatural writers are always so good, and I always praise the writers because I think they're generally so good. But I don't know why they thought this ending would be okay. Like, what in their head made them think yes? Like, again, I understand they wanted Dean to die before Sam, but just the way they went about it, that's like, that must be an Andrew Dabb thing, because obviously it was him who wrote it this way. well, probably Robert Singer and a lot of the other writers had influence in him, but I don't know. I don't want to get on Andrew Dabb because maybe it just wasn't also all him, just the writers in general. And the season 14 finale, that was such a good finale. Like, they're usually so good at writing finales. I'm trying to think what finale was bad. Maybe people did like 6? I can't remember. Maybe people did like 11? I can't remember. But I just remember the season 14 finale was really good. The season 13 finale was really good. And 12. I rather have had it where they left it where it was like unfinished and like, oh, someone, you know, I would have rather liked it if they had it Dean died then, and then we didn't even get to see him in heaven in like that life if he died in a great way. So this video's long and I'm mad, and if you can tell. And, you know, comment below if you disagree with me, comment below if you agree with me, comment below if you also have other thoughts that I didn't add that you think are important to add. I think Misha, Jensen, Jared, Shoshana, you guys deserve better. Alex, too, you guys deserve better. I think the only person to really blame is the writers. Like, it was all in your hands, and you know, the way you went around this, like, I wouldn't be surprised if people rioted. I wouldn't be surprised that if there was a movie in the future, we wouldn't want you to write it. I wouldn't be surprised if you got a lot of hate. I mean, in general, like, always the finales, you know, people don't like it. There's gonna be people who don't like it. And I was expecting to be like, okay, I probably won't like it. Like, because I just always, you know, think of the worst just to prepare myself. But always with finales, even though you don't like things wrap up. Things tie in. Things make sense. This just didn't. It just didn't make sense. It didn't feel like a Supernatural episode. It was literally a shit show. And yeah, I hate Supernatural now. I am ashamed to be a fan of it. This episode completely changed my mind of the series overall, and I just don't know where to go from here. And I wouldn't be surprised if Supernatural is no longer my favorite show, because you actually made me not like the show. Because I used to praise Supernatural so much, and now I'm like, was it all in my head? And I feel hurt and betrayed, and you guys hurt and betrayed a lot of people. And it's just wrong. It's just rude, and you did the ending that you wanted, but it wasn't the right ending. It was, I don't know. Anyway, this is it. I was thinking about putting up my middle finger, but I'm a classy girl. Okay, bye.